Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to take another crack at making a faux fur tail, but this time we're going to take a real deep dive into it. Like look at all different kinds of techniques, different kinds of materials. Everything's sorted in chapters in the progress bar, so check that out. And I hope you have a good time. Let's get started.
So this is what happens when you cut your strings too short. So as you can see, these colors have this really hard distinction between them, and they don't blend together very nicely, and that's because there wasn't enough material for it to like pull out. That's exactly where the end of the string was. This is the tail I made a couple years ago for my Halloween costume, and I made this one much thicker, much bigger. So like compared to this little thing, it's way bigger because I wanted it proportional to my body, right? So I made it much bigger. There is a little bit of that kind of scaling where it doesn't quite blend together, because the sections are so far apart from each other. So it flows nicely, and it's got nice movement, and it's a little bit rougher as kind of just overall. And inside there is this super thick core. The core is 1.5 inches thick braided acrylic yarn. So this is a 4-stranded braid, and then each strand of the braid has probably 12 to 15, I don't know, I couldn't count them, individual strands inside of it. So that's all braided around there, and then I made these little tufts and brushed those out, and then I sewed each one on. So the separation between each tuft is quite a bit, and that's what's causing this kind of scaling effect where it's not all one solid piece. I like this one a lot. I wish I would have made it a little bit shorter. It's a little bit too long, but it works really well for my costume. It's got really good action when you walk because that core is nice and heavy, and so I'm going to try and make a lighter one and see how that kind of affects it and flows. But I really like this tail. Took me a long time to make, but yeah, turned out good. So I've got a new technique to show you, a different way to make these tails that's a little bit more simple, and it's actually pretty quick to make a full tail. So you start out with whatever your yarn of choice and measure out a length of it, the size of tail you want, plus maybe a foot just to play with. So we'll measure out roughly 3 feet of yarn and double that up. So start with a 6-foot piece basically, and then with the looped end we're going to tape that to our work surface. And any kind of tape will do. The way I like to do it is put the first piece inside the loop, tape that down, and then take the second piece and put that over the loop and rub it in really good. And that makes a super strong bond. You can pull this all you want. And then the other piece, the other end of the line, we're just going to put underneath our leg to put a little tension on it. This is the same way that you would make like a hemp bracelet, where you're going to weave it around. The next thing to do is to cut your pieces. Now, like I said, you need to make sure that you cut it to the right length. So if you're unsure about the length of string you need to cut, just cut a little piece that's way longer than you think you need, tie a knot in the end so it doesn't come undone, and just brush it out and see what happens. It's a lot harder to brush just one strand than a whole cluster, but you'll get there. You just brush it against something hard, or you can put it in the brush and press down with your thumb and drag it through the teeth. And eventually it'll break. So about 3 inches just broke off because the fibers in the yarn are not that long. So you just brush it up all the way to the knot, and you end up with this tiny little piece. We started out with a piece that was 8 inches long, and now we have a piece, the very longest fiber on there is at 4 inches. So it looks like generally the body of it is only 2 inches long, but some of these stretch all the way out to 4 inches. So if you start with a 4-inch, 4.5-inch would be safer, maybe even 5-inch piece, and brush it back, that would be good. But I also didn't brush it all the way to the knot, and that happens too. But so right, I didn't write a script for this, okay? I'm just winging it. So yeah, 4 to 5 inches is a good length for this particular brand of Red Heart Super Saver Jumbo Stripes that I'm using. So that means I want a little bit extra. You always give yourself a little bit extra. So this bottle is a 10-inch circumference. So if I wrap that around and cut it, because the elasticity of the string, I end up with about a 9-inch piece. So then if I fold that in half and tie it onto something, each one of those strands is going to be about 4.5 inches long, which is pretty perfect for what we're doing. A good one to use that a lot of people can get access to is this Talenti sorbet. So pick up a can of this, and wrapping your string around that will make a 10.5-inch piece of string. So that works out pretty good. Find something around your house that's about 10 or 11 inches in diameter. And to do that really quickly, if you just like measure the width of your hand, mine is exactly 9 inches, so I know that, and I can like measure stuff really easy. You can wrap your hand around it, say, okay, that's 9. And if you have a tape measure, you can just guess. So this is gonna be 11.5, right? So there's 9, 10, 11 and a half. So an 11.5-inch circle, because of the elasticity of the string, when you stretch it tight around something and then let it go, it produces about a 10.5-inch string, which is perfect for what we're trying to do. So this Talenti sorbet is pretty good. Use that to wrap your string up. And if you can't find something, if you don't have this one, then find something close so you can get the right size. Then we're just going to take our string and wrap it up. You don't want to go too far with this, because as you wrap, obviously the circumference is getting bigger. So you don't want to like put your entire spool on this thing. Just do it in batches. And then also doing it in batches, if you have yarn like this that's different colors, you can better control the colors that you're using. So just cut that one time, and now you have a whole bunch of string to use. And then when we tie this around our main cord, each strand will end up being about 5 inches long, which is perfect. You can just keep wrapping till it changes colors, and then you can decide, you can like take all the really dark stuff out of it, make a really dark tail with some light accents, some light highlights, and like a white tip. Or you can shuffle all these together and kind of make it random. Okay, to get started, so we've got our 2-string core here. Let me get you a better view of this. Okay, so to start out, just take one of your strings, go underneath your core. Then you're just going to do an overhand knot, so just like you're tying your shoes. You see that? And pull that down so that the knot is in the middle of your string. Don't pull it so tight, but you know, get it snug on there so it's not moving around. And then just do another overhand knot. And then that one you want to snug down so that it's tight, and then you can slide that to the top. And then grab your next one, flip it under, and do it again. So you can, just the way that I am with my autopilot and when I'm doing this really fast, I do both knots the same. So it's not a square knot, it's with the left strand over top and then under, and I tie it, and then left strand over top again, and then I tie it and make it snug. And it works just fine. You don't have to worry about like right over left and then left over right to do a square knot. And I think for this tail, I'm gonna shuffle the colors. I'm just gonna make it random. So right now it's 8:30 p.m. We're gonna see how long this takes to go through this batch of string. As you're pushing up, you wanna push it, like you can do, like kind of just throw them up there, and then every 10 or so, you want to really shove them together as much as they would go and like kind of move them around and twist them and make sure the knots kind of like fit into each other and make it take up as little space as possible so that you're getting as much material in a small space as possible. Otherwise your tail is going to be really tiny. Okay, we're nearing the end of this particular tail, and that only took me like an hour and a half to do that whole thing. So we just snip off the extra and then tie this in a knot a couple of times just to anchor those last couple pieces so they don't come off. And you can even like take the last strand, the last piece of yarn, and tie those together. Just to make a nice strong anchor at the bottom of this so nothing comes slipping out, because it's all just around that core and they could just all come right off of there if you don't make something to stop it. Okay, and I don't want a big black piece at the end, so I'm just going to cut that off because this is the bottom of the tail. And we're all done with this part of it. Take the tape off of here. Now I say that this is the bottom because that's how I designed it, but the only thing that distinguishes the top from the bottom of these things is the way that you brush it. So if you brushed it this way, then that's the bottom, right? So at the top here, or what would be the start of your tail, you got this little loop of string. Same thing as the bottom, we need to anchor this because this piece can just slide right off. See, look, see? It can just slide it right off the top. There's no anchor up here. And so you can keep this loop to use to hook onto your belt or do whatever you need to. So to keep that loop, all we have to do is do a quick overhand knot. Just tie it around itself. And bring that down to the first string. So now we have a nice loop at the top to hang it from. So this is 18 inches long. It took me only like an hour and a half, hour 40, so it was like 100 minutes to do this whole thing. So that's 5.5 minutes per inch. So you can figure out, you're like, oh, I want a tail that's 3 feet long. If you do one 36 inches long, it's going to take you 200 minutes to complete if you do it as fast as I do. But now we got to brush it out. So this is the brush I use for brushing out my tails. It's an Oyster brush. I've had it for many years for our dogs. And yeah, just start brushing it like a dog. I like to get it on a rough surface. Definitely not on something that you don't want to scratch up, because like this will scratch up your wood or your nice table or your leg. So get it on like a cutting board or something, and having it on a hard surface lets you push through the different layers and really get deep inside there and separate all those fibers. So just brush the heck out of it, and then every once in a while when you feel like it's not really doing anything, it's because your brush is full. So just clear that out and keep going. That was a solid 20 minutes of brushing, and my arm is really tired. But if you give it a fluff, that looks really freaking good. I like this tail a lot. And when you grab it, all those knots in there, they feel like there's a bone inside there because it's so dense in the center. It feels really good. But this tiny little tail, all of this fluff came out of that one little tail. So the longer that you cut your yarn, the more fluff you're gonna have, and I did not cut it very long. I mean, of course, this has got a lot of air in it. It can smash down to this tiny little ball, but that is a lot of fluff that you're gonna have to deal with, especially if you make a bigger tail. Give it a shake and kind of fluff it up a little bit. Whoops, I dropped it. So it's super light. It's got the same kind of action as my other heavier tail, which I'm surprised by how light it is. The great thing about this one is because of how small that core is, you can sit on this all day long and you won't even notice it. Like when I wear this one, every time I sit down, like I take this to the Halloween party and sit down for dinner, I've got to like move it out of the way so I don't sit on it. And it's just annoying and it's heavy and it's horrible. But this one, you sit on this, you can't feel it at all. You'll forget you're wearing this one. This is my new favorite way to make tails. And it was super quick. What was that? It was a solid 2 hours, start to finish for this tail. And that includes putting my kids to bed and like getting up and getting a drink and do whatever else. Still, just 2 hours to make this. So super fast and easy. And I'm really happy with the results. So this is just a quick experiment to see what would happen. Instead of 2 strings, I have 12 strings in the core, just to see how that goes. The only difference when you're tying it though is that you have to make sure you keep track of your knots so that the hairs don't end up on all one side of the tail. So when you tie it, tie your first knot and don't cinch it up super tight, just kind of down to where the core is. And then the second one, come in and tighten it up so it moves really easily along the core. And then you have to find where your last knot was, which is, for this one, it's all the way on behind on the back of it. Twist your new one to sit next to that and then shove it up. And you kind of like make a spiral around the core all the way down. So nice and easy. And then tight. Wing it around and put those knots together. And I don't worry about getting it all the way tight, pushing it up yet. I do one full revolution. This is just what's working for me. Like I said, this is an experiment. So we'll get this one up. And then once I come around to the front, then I tie one way up here just so I don't have to slide it so far. I tie the first one really tight and then I push on that as much as I can, and that tight knot grabs onto the core and it holds it in place. So then that keeps it all super dense up here. It takes like 6 or 8 knots to come all the way around. It doesn't take very many. So we're gonna keep going with this, finish this tail out, and see how it looks. I really don't know how this is gonna end up. So this one turned out pretty good, black and blue. Kind of looks like a Pokemon tail. This one has the 12 strands in it, or maybe like 11. I can't remember exactly. It turned out a lot thicker than this one. So this one only has 2 strings going through the center of it. It's nice and skinny, so it's definitely more full, but this one is way more stiff. Like, it holds itself up. I mean, it does kind of, it'll bend just fine, but like it's stiff enough to hold up its own weight. This one is much floppier. So like if you're wearing this one, it's just gonna stay in a straight line. So maybe I made it a little too tight. Yarn bee is 80% cotton, 20% linen, and it does not work. It's like right about there is as much as you can brush it out, and it's just, you know, you're just gonna brush it into oblivion. It doesn't look like I'm doing anything, but I'm just making it shorter. Well, I don't know, maybe it would work if you did it carefully. It's super soft. this one rogue loop in there that's messing me up. It would be really easy to make it a funky shape and to brush too much. So I think it'd just be too difficult, but I mean, like that's a nice finish right there. That's all you're gonna see. And it's really soft, but it's just gonna come apart as you use it and wear it. So cotton is out. Cotton does not work. Wool works really well. I don't know why everybody's like, you can only use acrylic, because I brushed the crap out of this thing and this is what I got left with. And it is not a synthetic fiber, it's a natural fiber, and so it feels natural. It feels really good. So I'm gonna make a full tail out of this stuff. This is 100% wool. I got it from Michael's. It's called I Love This Wool. Naturals, pure and simple. We're gonna make a full tail out of this and see how it goes. The last one I have to test is this one. It's 50% acrylic, 50% tencel, which I've never heard of tencel before. But we're gonna brush that out and see what happens. So apparently this stuff is made from tree pulp, which is pretty cool. It's nice and soft, but it doesn't work well for tail making. Unless you like the kind of Raggedy Ann look, because it's really just a bunch of strings. No matter how much you brush it, it doesn't really fluff up all that much. So that's a no-go. Into the pile. But wool, whoo, I'm excited about wool. Even though it's, you know, I bet people online say not to use wool because it's really expensive. That's why they say that. This is the wool tail. Wolf tail. Wool. It's the wolf wool tail. I didn't make it very big because it just was a test. I didn't actually know if it was going to work, but it did. And then this black part is obviously acrylic. This is the only color wool that I bought, but it feels so good. Oh, like the acrylic feels like plastic because it is plastic. It's made from petroleum and it's just 100% synthetic, and it feels like it's synthetic. But this tail, the rest of this tail, oh, it feels like a real wolf tail. Not that I've ever pet a wolf, but I've pet lots of dogs and a fox. I have a fox tail, and it feels like a real one, not a fake one like this. And it feels just like this. It just feels so good compared to these ones. This is my new favorite thing. The other thing is it's way poofier than the acrylic gets. So like this one, like brush it down, and this one, brush it down. These two were made with the same technique, and you see how much thicker the wool one looks. This one looks kind of weird, especially up here. So like this one, it's only a couple inches wide, and this one's super poofy. So it takes less material to make a bigger tail. So I'm 100% in love with this. I want to go buy more colors of wool yarn because I like the multicolored, kind of like this aesthetic instead of just the single color, which is why I couldn't resist putting a black tip on it. The other thing I want to try, like this is a really good size. I like that a lot, but if it, like proportionally, I think this looks really good. But if I wanted to make it longer, I would want to make it, this long, which is way longer. It's like twice as long. I would want it thicker than this so that it looked right. Because this one looks super lanky and skinny, which like it could work for some aesthetic, depending on what you're doing. So this would be nice. I had the idea though, I'm going to test it out, make 3 of these basically, but before you brush it out, then braid the 3 tails together instead of trying to shove, which was the problem with this one. I was trying to shove all this material up into one little space. If you took 3 separate cores and braided them together, I'm wondering what that would look like. So I'm gonna try that and see. Okay, after a couple minutes of rooting around in my messy closet, I found my tail. So this is a real tail that one of my students actually got me a couple years ago. And this, compared to this wool one, the wool is a little bit like stickier, like it grabs, like the texture grabs onto my skin a little bit more. Like this feels smoother. Look, and they both have little black tips. Oh, and they're actually, I did this totally on accident. They're the same size. So that's friggin' realistic. I actually don't know what animal this is either. I think it's a fox. Just looking at it. It might be a coyote. I don't really know. If you know what this is, just by looking at it, let me know, because I don't know what it is. Okay, so I tried making 3 different tails and then braiding them together, and it did not work. It was way too messy. So, new idea. I've got 3 double strands, so there's 6 strings here. They're all braided at the top in their own, like a single loop up here for the start, and then there's a big knot to start it at the top. And then I'm putting 10 knots on each string. So this is 10 pieces of yarn all put together and kind of organized a little bit. And once I have all 3, I think this is going to work really well. I haven't really tested it, so this is like we're learning it all together. So once I have all those together nice, I'm going to shove these all the way to the top. Not super tight, because I don't want it as stiff as that one, but you know, decently tight all the way to the top. And the reason I have it organized like that is so that I don't end up with strands kind of inside the core. All the strands are facing outwards. So once we have all those tied at the top, we're just going to take any color that you're working with, just one string, go around all 3 of them, and just tie it on like you normally would, but I'm going to make it super tight on that first knot. Bring all these down and cinch that up, and that's going to tie all those cores together, and that's going to be plenty strong. You do that every inch, and there'll be a knot every inch all the way down the tail. That's going to be plenty strong to hold that whole thing together. And then there's going to be triple fluff. It's going to be super, super fluffy. It's going to be great. Hopefully. I don't really know, because I haven't done this before, but we're going to see. We're going to do it. So this is what I've got so far. It's about 16 inches long. The hardest thing that I haven't figured out quite yet of how to do it properly is how to taper the tip of the tail. Usually it ends up like this, kind of stubby and squared off, not like the real one that nicely tapers to a point. So I'm going to try that on this big one. My plan is I've got 3 cores, so I'm going to what I have been doing is putting 10 strands in each section. So I'm going to take out 1 core and do probably 2 or 3 sets of strands on these 2 cores. Then I'll get rid of another core and then do 2 or 3 more sets. And then maybe I'll do a couple more sets that are like spread out and knotted. So it's just like a single piece. I don't really know. I'm just going to wing it and see if it works. So at the bottom here, I just did like I did 5, and then I put a couple knots in the core, and then I did 3 or 5 more, and then another knot, and then 3 more, and then another knot to space it out even more. And then I knotted the very last one. And as it is now, it looks like a pretty decent taper. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm gonna brush it out and see how it looks. So I won't make you watch me brush out this whole thing, but this is how I brush out my the bigger tails when there's like a lot of brushing to do. So start on either end, it doesn't really matter, but fold all of the yarn. My brush is totally covering up. Fold all the yarn like upwards, backwards of the way you're brushing it, and then you can pull down like one layer at a time, brush those out, and I just do it on across my thigh, and then make sure that you're cleaning your brush out, because that'll definitely slow you down. And you just keep going like that, and so you can like get a good grip on the tail right above where you're working, keep all that out of your way, and once those fibers you've got have gotten sufficiently fluffed, then you can pull down a couple more. So this is what it looks like after the first round of brushing. I do like the taper that I got down here. It's looking good, but I'm going to go through, I'm going to brush it upside down. So I'll brush each layer just like it was before. I'll brush it down like this, and you see how much got missed there. So I'll brush each layer down, 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 go through the whole tail, and then flip it again and brush it one more time. And these seams and this unevenness should kind of go away, and it should all be a lot more even after that. So I really didn't expect this. It's super fluffy now that I brushed it backwards. It's like crazy fluffy. So I am super happy with the way this came out. It feels great. It looks great. I feel like it's like an Arctic fox kind of a look because it's super fluffy. And I'm going to leave it that way. You might be able to get a different aesthetic with like irons or curlers or whatever else you could try. I really like the taper though. I've been trying a long time to get that taper down. Starting with that thicker core definitely helped being able to kind of taper off the amount of material I was using. So I'm super happy with that tip. I just can't stop petting it. It feels so good. Because like these ones are not nice to pet. They're like, to me, because I have really rough hands. I'm in construction and my hands are sandpaper. And these like stick to my hands, and it's just like, I don't like it. It's not nice, but oh my gosh, this one, oh, this is like petting my dog. Is really what it feels like. It feels so good. You definitely have to try out wool. Acrylic is not the way to go. Everyone lied to you. You should use wool yarn. You know, wool is more expensive than acrylic, right? So I did get both of these on sale, but the original price for this one was $6.70 at Walmart. I got it on in clearance. But this is 10 ounces of acrylic yarn for $7. And this one was originally $7 too. It was $6.50. And this is 4 ounces. So it's pretty much twice as expensive for wool as it is acrylic, because you're getting twice the amount of material for the same price. So yes, it's more expensive, but oh my gosh, spend the money. Spend $3 extra. I mean, I bought 4 rolls of this to make this tail with all the different colors, but if you wanted 2 colors or 1 color, it wouldn't be that much money. Like $12 to buy two rolls, because I didn't even use, let's see, I probably used about 4 ounces of yarn for this tail. I'd say. I'm totally guessing because it's really hard to see. I've got a bunch of extras. I'm gauging how much is left in these guys. Yeah, it's really weird. So maybe not even that. Maybe 3 ounces of yarn, because I still have a lot left. That's all you need. You need to go to the store. Oh, also, I haven't said it yet. I'm pretty sure I said Michael's before. I got these at Hobby Lobby. Not Michael's. Michael's used to be my store of choice because that was what was around. I grew up with Michael's. And where we live now, I don't have a Michael's. I only have Hobby Lobby. I don't even have the choice. But seriously, you need to go to the store. Go to your nearest craft store, Walmart, Joann's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, whatever. Buy yourself some wool yarn and make a tail, because it'll change your life. This is amazing. It feels so good. It won't change your life, but it will blow your mind if you make one. And the other thing, so like this one, this is an actual tail from an actual animal, right? You squeeze it, and you can feel the core. There's no, they took the bone out, obviously, because that would be no good. But the skin that's in there is hard, and you can kind of like squeeze it and feel that core and what used to be there, right? And this one, you squeeze it and you feel that core. Oh, it just feels so good. It feels just like the real thing. It's amazing. Why is nobody talking about this? Because I didn't know how to do this when I first started. I did a bunch of research on YouTube, and everybody I saw said nothing else works except for acrylic. And I blindly trusted them, and that was a mistake. Wool is the way to go. Even though it's crazy expensive. Well, crazy expensive to me because, I'm super poor. But that's how you do. That's why I make art out of trash, because I can't afford nice things. Anyway, I hope this video has helped you in your pursuit to make a tail for yourself. Wolf tail, fox tail, whatever it may be. Unicorn tail. You can do that too. Please subscribe for more super awesome content. And I'm sorry I'm not more animated. I'm kind of sick right now. I'm working through a cold. My throat is sore. And I don't feel good. Holy crap. It's 11:30. And my wife just had surgery. I gotta take care of her tomorrow. So, I gotta go to bed. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.